kancelarit të Republikës Gjermane, zotit Olaf Scholz, dhe presidentes Komisionit Evropian Shkëlqesis, Ursula von der Leyen. Pastaj do vazhdoj me pyetje. Tashmë ja jap fjalën për komentet hyrëse kryeministrit të Republikës së Shqipërisë, shkëlqesis tij, zotit Edi Rama. Është një ditë e paharruar, e cila po përmbyllet përkundër të gjitha parashikimeve të aplikacionit të motit të Apple-it dhe dëshirën për të mbajtur sa më mirë miqtë tanë ka qenë më e fortë se sa çdo ekspertizë meteorologjike që gjatë gjithë javës na thoshte se dita do të ishte ditë me shi. Dhe nuk ishte kështu. Kështu që jam mirënjohës Zotit dhe Bashkimit Evropian që u siguruan që kjo ditë të niste me një diell të mrekullueshëm e të mbyllej me një fllad të këndshëm. Ndërsa Samiti u mbyll me diskutime mjaft të frutshme, me shkëmbime vërtet të hapura e me një ndjenjë të vërtet miqësie. Nuk do të gjeja dot kur fjalët e duhura për të falendëruar kancelarin që në mënyrë kaq të hirshme që i hapur për idenë për ta sjellë procesin e Berlinit jashtë Bashkimit Evropian në Tiranë. Dhe nuk do të gjeja dot kur fjalët e nevojshme për të falendëruar presidenten e komisionit që i dha këtij samiti diçka vërtet thelbësore përmes planit të ri të rritjes të Bashkimit Evropian për Ballkanin Perëndimor. Ky është një moment i vështirë në kohë për çdo kënd dhe sfidat me të cilat ne të gjithë së bashku përballemi janë të jashtëzakonshme për shkak të krizave të njëpasnjëshme që kanë goditur të gjithë ne, qofshim Europë me B apo Europë pa bën bashklidhur. Nuk duket se gjërat bëhen më mirë përpara se sa të përkeqësohen në shumë fronte. Përfshi frontin e ri të tmerrshëm në konfliktin midis Izraelit dhe Hamasit. Në të njëjtën kohë, sidoqoftë, këto kohë kanë farkëtuar miqësinë tonë, kanë farkëtuar bashkëpunimin tonë, kanë farkëtuar ndjenjën e përbashkësisë dhe fal udhëheqjes së Bashkimit Evropian, ajo çfarë ka ndodhur është shfrytzuar për të parë përpara me një besim më të fortë kundrejt Ballkanit Perëndimor. Nuk dua të flas gjatë, pasi siç mund ta imagjinoni, mund t'ju mbaj këtu deri nesër. Por këta dy gjerman krah meje kanë orare, kanë afate kohë të përcaktuara, avion për të marrë gjëra për të bërë. Kështu që nuk dua që të marrë nga koha e tyre këtu, sepse nuk ndodh çdo ditë që të kemi nderin që të presim kancelarin e Republikës Federale të Gjermanisë dhe nuk ndodh çdo ditë që të presim presidenten e komisionit. Kështu që jam i sigurt që ato çka do thonë ata janë më të rëndësishme se ajo çfarë mund të them unë. Si për herë, mbetem i gatshëm për pyetjet në qoftë se kam ndonjë pyetje që më drejtohet. Pra, kancelar, ju lutem pranoni shprehjen e mirënjohjes sime për gjithçka po bëni për ne. Dhe që Jeni një fuqi e qetë e mbreslënse që kam ngullni për të shtyrë Bashkimin Evropian në Ballkanin Perëndimor për të ardhur më afër me njëri tjetrin.
Arbeit und Engagement geflossen. Das hat sich ausgezahlt und deshalb möchte ich auch alle guten Worte zurückgeben. Ohne dein Engagement wäre es gar nicht möglich gewesen, dass wir so weit gekommen sind, wie wir jetzt sind. Und das ist wirklich das Ergebnis guter, engagierter Arbeit, die wir alle gemeinsam da reingesteckt haben. Es ist ein gutes Zeichen, dass nun der Berlin-Prozess zum ersten Mal in einem Land des Westbalkans stattgefunden hat. Noch besser ist es, dass alle Ministerpräsidentinnen und Präsidenten der Region hierher gekommen sind und dass wir mit allen miteinander sprechen konnten. Das verdeutlicht, wie sehr sich die Länder diesem Prozess verpflichtet fühlen und wie wichtig er ist, um den Westbalkan an die Europäische Union heranzuführen. Denn dafür wird es in der Tat Zeit. Wir dürfen nicht drumherum reden. Neben den weltpolitischen Krisen dieser Tage müssen wir in der Region aktuell Rückschläge hinnehmen. Es ist erst wenige Wochen her, dass Polizisten in Kosovo brutal angegriffen wurden. Ein Beamter ist dabei getötet worden. Das verurteilen wir auf das Schärfste. Hier in Tirana habe ich heute noch einmal ganz klar gemacht, es führt kein Weg vorbei an regionalem Zusammenhalt und der dauerhaften Lösung von Konflikten, die schon viel zu lange schwelen. Und dafür braucht es konkrete und spürbare Verbesserungen für alle, die hier auf dem westlichen Balkan leben. Vereinbarungen, die den Alltag erleichtern, die Bürgerinnen und Bürger zusammenbringen, ganz wichtig, Vereinbarungen, die das nötige Vertrauen stiften. Der Berlin-Prozess leistet hierzu seit 2014 seinen wichtigen Beitrag. Lassen Sie mich 4 konkrete Vereinbarungen herausgreifen, auf die wir uns heute hier verständigt haben. Erstens, der Klimawandel wirkt sich auch und insbesondere auf die Länder des westlichen Balkans aus. Mit einer regionalen Klimapartnerschaft Deutschland-Westbalkan wollen wir den Kampf gegen den Klimawandel und den Einsatz erneuerbarer Energien gezielt unterstützen. Deutschland wird dies mit insgesamt 1,5 Milliarden Euro bis 2030 mitfinanzieren. Punkt 2. Die Länder des Westbalkans müssen und wollen enger zusammenrücken. Das betrifft auch den kleinen Grenzverkehr. Die 3 Mobilitätsabkommen, die vergangenen November in Berlin unterzeichnet wurden, sind nun von fast allen Staaten ratifiziert worden und finden jetzt Anwendung. Ein zusätzliches 4. Mobilitätsabkommen ist heute unterzeichnet worden, mit dem 4 weitere Berufsabschlüsse gegenseitig anerkannt wurden. Drittens fördert Deutschland das regionale Jugendkooperationsbüro 𝐫𝐭𝐤𝐥𝐢 in Höhe von 1,2 Millionen Euro und den neuen Jugendkulturfonds mit 300.000 Euro. Und als 4. Beispiel freue ich mich, dass die Bundesregierung zusätzliche 73 Millionen Euro für ein neues Projekt Klimaprogramm Albanien bereitstellt. Das ist ein offenes Programm zur Integration erneuerbarer Energien. Meine Damen und Herren, die Zukunft des westlichen Balkans liegt in der Europäischen Union. Dieses Versprechen gilt. Und es gilt heute mehr denn je. Jedes beitrittswillige Land hat dabei die Geschwindigkeit des Prozesses selbst in der Hand. Die Länder müssen sich fit machen für die Europäische Union. Der Schlüssel dafür sind Reformen, über die wir heute auch noch einmal ausgiebig gesprochen haben. Meine Damen und Herren, der Berlin-Prozess ist eine Erfolgsgeschichte. Und ich bin entschlossen, dieser Geschichte mit unserem deutschen Engagement weitere Kapitel hinzuzufügen. Das 10. Jubiläum des Berlin-Prozesses steht im kommenden Jahr an und wir wollen es begehen und das nächste Treffen deshalb wegen des Jubiläums erneut in Deutschland abhalten. Ich freue mich schon darauf und auf die Beratung. Schönen Dank.
Thank you, Chancellor. And now the floor to the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen.
Thank you very much. Thank you, dear Eddie, for the wonderful hospitality and your leadership at this summit. And thank you, Olaf, for the excellent cooperation in the preparation, but also during this summit. We're here in Tirana working on bringing the Western Balkans and the European Union closer. But at the same time, the eyes of the world are now on Israel and Palestine. And our minds too. There can be no justification for Hamas' heinous acts of terror, for the brutal slaughter of 1,400 people in Israel. In the face of this horror, Israel has the right to defend itself in line with humanitarian and international law. And right now, Palestinians in Gaza are in need of humanitarian help and aid. They cannot pay the price of Hamas barbarism. And this is why the Commission has announced to triple humanitarian aid for civilians in Gaza to 75 million euros. And we are launching an EU humanitarian air bridge to Gaza through Egypt. The first 2 flights will start this week. They will bring humanitarian goods to Gaza, and we will keep working with our partners in the region to assess and address the needs on the ground. Now, turning to our work here today. Last year I said that Albania at the helm, the Berlin process would be in good hands, and I was right. So thank you very much, Eddie and Olaf, for the very good exchanges and for a very successful summit. But a lot remains to be done. We need to bring our economies even closer, and we need to speed up the reforms for accession. And this is why I presented to leaders our growth plan. The new growth plan has the potential, if implemented, to double the size of the Western Balkan economy still in this decade. It has 4 pillars. The first pillar of the plan is bringing the Western Balkans into the single market. We basically open the door of the single market in 7 key areas for the Western Balkan companies already now. Just to give you a few examples on customs cooperation, e-commerce, cashless payments, road transport, electricity, roaming, just to name a few. Now, the second pillar is that the Western Balkans themselves have to complete their common regional market. If they complete their common regional market, this could increase the GDP of the Western Balkans by 10%. So the Western Balkans also need to open to their own neighbors, to the 5 neighbors and partners, their own markets. The third pillar is reforms. If we want to give access to the Western Balkans to the European single market, of course there needs to be a level playing field, the same rules and standards. This means reforms are necessary. And these reforms also bring the Western Balkans closer to membership. These reforms will also make the Western Balkans even more attractive for European investors and make our respective economies, which is very important, converge. Because today we have a situation where the Western Balkan economies are at 35% of the EU average. So there needs to be lots of work to be done to have more convergence of the economies. And finally, the fourth pillar of the plan is if reform efforts are being done, they will be matched by increased EU funding for investment. In other words, we have proposed a 6 billion investment package. This is composed of 2 billion in grants and 4 billion in loans. And this same logic applies like in our investment plan Next Generation EU for the member states. That is investment and reforms. Funds will be relieved upon delivery of reforms. So it is conditional. It works very well in the European Union. I'm deeply convinced it will work in the Western Balkans too. Thank you again. This has been an excellent summit. We want to move forward and we want to move faster. Let's seize the moment.
Thank you, Madam President. We are now ready to take the journalist questions.
Një pyetje e përbashkët për kancelarin dhe presidenten. Duket se Aleksandar Vučić e ka bërë zgjedhjen e tij, duke qenë sot në Kinë në krah të Vladimir Putinit, në vend se të ishte këtu, siç ka bërë në 9
In English.
është shumë e gjatë për ta bërë në anglisht. Edhe është shumë shqiptare.
Okay.
Herr Bundeskanzler, ich würde Sie gerne zum Krieg im Nahen Osten fragen. Ich glaube, Sie kann ich jetzt in Deutsch fragen. Sie werden als erster Regierungschef seit der Terrorattacke der Hamas auf Israel nach Israel reisen. Welches Signal verbinden Sie mit diesem Besuch und was wollen Sie dort konkret erreichen? Und da Sie anschließend ja auch nach Ägypten reisen, die Frage, was halten Sie von dem Gipfel, den Ägypten am Samstag ausrichten will, und werden Sie die Einladung zu dem Gipfel annehmen? And a question to you, Madam President and Prime Minister. Did you also talk about the refugee routes on the Balkans today? Madam President, what are your expectations to the Balkan countries on that issue? And Prime Minister, what do you expect from the EU, and how do you prepare for more refugees regarding the situation in the Middle East?
Es ist mir wichtig, die Solidarität mit Israel auch ganz praktisch durch meinen Besuch zum Ausdruck zu bringen. Das ist jetzt gerade in dieser ganz besonderen Situation für die israelische Bevölkerung und für das Land von großer Bedeutung, dass die Solidarität auch versichert wird. Ansonsten gibt es konkrete praktische Fragen zu besprechen, die wir besser vor Ort auch diskutieren können, insbesondere was die Sicherheitssituation betrifft und auch was die Frage betrifft, wie man verhindern kann, dass es zu einer Eskalation dieses Konfliktes auch auf weitere Regionen, etwa in den Norden oder anderswohin gibt. Das setzt gute Gespräche, übrigens auch mit vielen anderen Staaten der Region voraus. Und damit ist auch die Frage beantwortet im Hinblick auf den späteren Besuch in Ägypten. Es geht eben darum, konstant mit allen im Gespräch zu sein und eine Perspektive zu entwickeln, die solche Eskalation verhindert. Im Übrigen geht es natürlich auch immer um die Frage, wie humanitäre Hilfe organisiert werden kann. Aber auch das will ich zum Schluss noch einmal sagen. Der Überfall der Hamas war ein terroristischer Akt, der unverantwortlich war, der furchtbare Konsequenzen hat, der unglaublich viele Menschen getötet hat und unglaublich viele erniedrigt. Und deshalb hat Israel jedes Recht, sich selbst zu verteidigen.
Eddie, would you like me to start with migration? Yeah. I hope I have the phone mic. Does the mic work? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. The migration question you asked me. So, indeed, there was a limited discussion on the topic. It was not the center of the discussion, but of course, it was part of the discussion. And indeed, we have a look with the European Union at the migration routes. Migration routes, for example, coming through the Western Balkans. I have to say, the first topic, if we look at it from the European Union's perspective, is that we get our internal rules properly addressed. That is, that we finish the Migration and Asylum Pact. These are the internal rules within the European Union, but we are in a good way after having agreed on the crisis management. The second part is the operational part, where we can be very practical. And here we're working closely with the Western Balkan countries, for example, strengthening the borders by delivering on Frontex agreements, not with each and every one, but with some of them. Or proper registration of refugees. Very important is the alignment in the visa policy, very important. And here, our asylum agency and the European agency in general are also supporting as best as possible. So besides the legal framework within the European Union, we already start to include the Western Balkan by operational day-to-day work to our management of migration at the external borders.
Yes, we had also a discussion about it, and I cannot add much to what the President already explained. What can I say about ourselves, meaning Albania? We are not part of the Balkan route, so on that aspect we don't influence much for good or bad this phenomenon. But as always, we are here ready to help. We have done it all the way through our history. Albania is the only country in Europe that had more Jews after the Second World War than before, and a country that became a sanctuary for the Jews basically during the Second World War, and where no one single Jew was released to the Nazis. Then we had the experience of the big drama of the ethnic cleansing in Kosovo. We hosted here 500,000 refugees from Kosovo that were obliged to leave their houses because they were under a terrible, terrible pressure and literally hunted by Milosevic regime. We offered shelter to several thousands of Afghans after the situation that was created by our alliance Leaving Afghanistan, and we are ready to do so in the future, of course, always considering our modest dimension and our not limitless capacities. So this is what I can say to answer your question. And I fully agree with the President that this phenomenon is something that has to be dealt in much more united manner, and by defining very clearly the internal rules, both for European Union and for us, because the Western Balkans are the most incredible reality in the history of geography and of mapping. And I don't think there is another reality in the history of mapping where an entity, geographical and political entity, is surrounded completely by another entity. So practically we are not in the European Union, but we are surrounded completely by the borders of the European Union. So somehow we are part of it all the time, for good or bad.
Po e rimar pyetjen, në mbajti moti, po patëm probleme me përkthimin.
So the weather was really nice, but we had problems with the technical system of the interpreting.
Aleksandar Vučić duket sikur e ka bërë zgjedhjen e tij dhe ka zgjedhur Rusinë duke qenë edhe sot në Kinë për krah Vladimir Putin.
So it seems like Alexander Vučić has made his choice towards Russia, and he's even today along Vladimir Putin meeting in China.
Ndryshe nga sa ka bërë në të gjitha takimet e tjera të nismës procesit Berlinit. Por ndërkohë, çfarë po bën Bashkimi Evropian? A do të marrë sanksione për ato që ndodhi në 24 shtator, sepse duke shpallur ditëzie për 3 nga terroristët, Serbia në një farë mënyrë duket sikur e pranoi autorsinë e këtij sulmi? Do të ketë sanksione ndaj Serbisë? Kjo është pyetja e përbashkët edhe për kancelarin edhe për presidenten. Zonja presidente, kam një pyetje enkas për ju. Nuk e di nëse
So actually, it seems like today Mr. Vučić made a different choice, but nonetheless, I would like to go back to the events of the 24th of September. Has the European Union decided to take sanctions against Serbia? Because with its declaration on the morning day of the three terrorists, it's as if they accepted the authorship of what happened in Kosovo. So this is my first question to all of you, also to the Chancellor and to the President. And I do have another question for you, President, directly.
Nuk e di nëse presidenti Michel është më optimist nga natyra dhe ju jeni më objektive, por u duk sikur pati një përplasje të deklaratave tuaja kur Michel dha afatin e antarësimit vendeve të rajonit 2030 dhe pati një deklarat nga zyra juaj që këmbguli që janë reformat ato që vendosin dhe jo data konkrete. Kush është arsyeja e këtyre dy qëndrimeve tuaja? Zoti Rama, 9 vjet procesi Berlinit.
So actually, my question is related to your statements of today and the statement of the Council President Charles Michel. It seems like between you two, he is the most optimistic one and you are the more objective one, since he declared actually a certain timeline for the membership in 2030, for the membership of the countries, whereas your office actually, after that statement, said that it is reforms, the ones that decide such a membership or accession. So I would like to ask you, what's the reason for this two different standings between the you two?
Should be gracious with our guests, so let the other colleagues make questions. I'm here every day to be grilled from you, and very happily so, but Chancellor.
Soll ich anfangen? All right. So I think the first question also, part of the question also goes to me, what the horrible attack of the 24th of September is concerned. We strongly condemn that. At the moment being, we are in a process where the facts about the attacks need to be established, so we wait for the outcome of the investigation, and based on that one, we will decide on the next steps, of course, in close cooperation with our member states. Now, the date 2030. Accession is a merits-based process, and there cannot be a rigid date where, regardless of how you reformed or not, you enter the European Union. This will be never acceptable for the member states, or you have to wait till a certain date. 2030 would mean next mandate, no accession. So I think the agreed methodology, which we have in the European Council, is that it is a merits-based process. And this is much more rewarding for the countries too, because it's their efforts and their successes that brings them forward. And it's a strong incentive also to do the necessary steps. For example, if you take now the growth plan, the new growth plan, it is also merits-based. It says, you reform, you do the steps forward, there will be funding and investment. And I think this is a much better incentive as to have a very rigid process which would then have an automatism. This goes against the methodology we have agreed on.
So I have not to add too much to what Ursula already said. Just shortly, we really condemn the attack against the policemen and all the activities that we saw in Kosovo, attacking institutions, attacking people. This is something we will not accept, and so it is absolutely clear that the European Union and all the member states, also Germany, are very clear on that point. We also ask for a very intense investigation and ask all to participate in this and support the investigations that are done by the Kosovo authorities, which I think is essential. Also that the Serbian authorities are cooperating in this field with Kosovo, which I think is very good if this would happen. Let me add, it is absolutely necessary that we understand the situation. A peaceful development in the Western Balkans needs the understanding of all states that this will only work if they are not haunted by the past, but looking for the future, and if they try to solve the problems they have with each other. This is why we worked so hard to support Northern Macedonia in its accession process to the European Union and to solve all the problems, first with Greece and later with Bulgaria. Now there is a chance for going into the right direction, and we really appreciate what the Northern Macedonian government and the Prime Minister is doing. The same is with discussing all the questions we see in Bosnia-Herzegovina, where there are a lot of reforms are necessary, and we support all those truly working for a reform of the government structures of this state, which I think would be very helpful. And this is the question we are working in the field of Kosovo and Serbia. I think there are a lot of agreements already reached, and there was in the last time also an agreement which is on basic criteria for cooperation, which is very much following an experience we have had in Germany when our country was divided, but which help to make life easier for people, for businesses, and all the things that are practical for the life day to day. And I think this is the same way we should choose here, and the chance is now there to get this. And we continue to work on this, also on implementing all the agreements that have been made in the past and recently, for instance, also on the Serbian municipalities in the north of Kosovo and their cooperation and questions like this. So let me assure you, it is the strict willingness of my government and also the European Union. It is the strict willingness of, for instance, the French, the Italian, and the United States government to solve this conflict and to pave the way for a good future of the two states, and both as members of the European Union.
Last question.
Okay. Andreas Rinke from Reuters. Let me pass on the question of the timing of enlargement to you, Prime Minister and Chancellor. When the EU Council President Michel said 2030, is that too early or too late for accessions? The President of the Commission already answered this question. What's your opinion? And second question about Bosnia. Bosnia hopes that the EU makes a decision that it's opening accession talks with Bosnia like with Ukraine in December. Is Bosnia ready for this step? This question goes to you, President of the Commission, as well.
So possibly I will start the answer of the question of the accession of, or the opening of the procedures with for Bosnia-Herzegovina will be given first by the European Commission. So we will hear from Ursula. They will tell us their survey and what they got from looking at the concrete situation, I think in November. So it will be that time that we hear more about it. And I'm sure that the President will just give you this advice, wait for November, but we will hear. The second is that I'm convinced that it is a mistake that after having met in Thessaloniki 20 years ago, we have not reached the accession of the Western Balkan states to the European Union so far. It should have been done already. And this is why we are so intensely working on making this feasible and working for it. And it will happen as fast as it is possible due to the questions that are on the table. And we all together have the same view. The President of the Council, the President of the Commission, the Member States. It is in the end merit-based. But this is not just a saying. We've worked very hard to make it happen, that the states can do the necessary steps, that we can say it is now the case that they can join. And my view is it should happen as fast as possible. And it could not take that a long time again as it took in the past. I repeat to what I said in the beginning, if you give countries the idea they could join the European Union, and there is a European dream in these countries, you have to work very hard that this is happening. And 20 years were too much. Now we are in that situation, but we have to hurry up for getting a solution as soon as possible.
Yes, and relatively short, because it is basically the same that I'm saying. We have the procedure is the following. We are working at the moment being on the so-called enlargement report, which comes every year in fall. It will be in the College of the Commission on the 8th of November, and it is the view on all the countries that are in the process, and gives a recommendation to the European Council. The European Council will then discuss the matter in the December JUCO. That is the typical European Council for the enlargement process. Indeed, Russia's war against Ukraine changed everything, because it made very clear that there cannot be, for no country that wants to join the European Union, an in-between anymore between the European Union and Russia. You have to decide, or you have to take choices. On the other hand, it also accelerated the process insofar as we are working much harder and much more intensively on driving forward the necessary reforms and investment for the accession process. And I mean, today was a symbol for the strong will also of the Western Balkan countries to join. And therefore, for me, it's important. Let's do our homework and let's seize the moment. This is a historic moment that we really should use.
And let me conclude by underlining the very high importance of this summit, because I'm afraid that then the follow-up will be what Charles Michel said and what Ursula said, and this soap opera that is apparently the same national sport from Germany to Albania, from North Macedonia to Netherlands. The point is that something is fundamentally changing. So, yes, we can discuss about how long it has taken, we can discuss about how tortuous this path is, but since the Russian aggression, something has fundamentally changed. We can see it because we are very, very attentive to every move, to every smile, to every palpitation of eyes when these guys speak. And if before we could see part of the member states very, positive, and some others very skeptical, today is not the same. It's a totally different spirit, number one. Number two, the summit has brought some incredibly different results. The new growth plan that the President von der Leyen has extended today also in front of you is not business as usual, is not more of the same. It's completely new. And it's completely new in the sense that it's showing that the European Union is opening up towards the non-member states of the Western Balkan by accepting to make extra steps that normally are related to the membership. So both financially and when it comes to the openings on the single market. These are huge things for the time being. It's not the full membership, of course, but it's not the same that has been before for every non-member state that had to go through all the homework and had to suffer all the pain of having to be a good student, and at the end had to get back home with just some good or bad results. It's totally different. And I'm very, very optimistic about this spirit and about this approach, because it means that there is a very high level of awareness among the member states, and this commission that has been since day one presented by the president as a geopolitical commission is changing things that were unimaginable for us just a few years ago. So how we would have get to this point that with the backing of Germany, of France, and of all the countries, the Commission makes an extra mile and says, listen, we need to support you more, and we are supporting you more. But of course you have to deliver, because it's, with the European Union, is never, you never get a present. You always get homework, and then you get also reward if you deserve the reward. This is clear, very clear, and it's clear even for member states. You have to be Germany to not be told what to do. Otherwise, you have to be told what to do. So
I strongly object.
No, but no, I say it in full heart, and I love Germany, by the way. So no doubt about that. So no problem with that. But we know, we have learned it in the hard way, I must say. But now we are fine. You know, we need to push and push and push and push, because, as I always say, European Union provides countries something that you can't find anywhere else. Something that you can't invent, something that you can't learn in the books, which is the amazing know-how of the state building with democratic standards, of institution building. Where you find it? Who can teach you this except the European Union? So. I can say that this summit has been historical also in that regard, because it has opened a path that will be larger next year and will be larger the year after the next year. And in the same time, we have to do our homework. I've never, ever been, looking for dates. After I learned in the hard way that getting a date with the European Union is not just about how much you love, it's also about how much time they have to accept a date. Now it's not about dates, it's about doing your homework for yourself, for your country, for your people, for your future. And then when the stars will come together, we'll make the big wedding, but doesn't matter. We can live in a well-articulated, how is called it? In Italian they say copia di fatto, a couple of facts, not blessed by the church or by the mayor, but a couple. So we are going there slowly, and slowly but steadily. And
Ishte një ditë suksesshme sepse procesi I Berlinit së pari erdhi për herë të parë në Ballkanin Perëndimor, këtu në Tiranë, në kryeqytetin e Republikës së Shqipërisë, dhe së dyti patëm edhe një marrëveshje të re që ka të bëjë me njohjen e diplomave, kualifikimeve dhe qarkullimin e lirë të profesioneve të caktuara, pra të infermierëve dhe mamive, si dhe të farmacistëve e të kirurgëve veterinar. Me këtë rast në adresimin tim, unë theksova që është për të ardhur keq që ka dhe vendet të cilët nuk I kanë ratifikuar këto marrëveshje të cilët I kemi bërë në të kaluarën, përkatësisht në takimin që kemi pasur në Berlin me 3 nëntor të vitit kaluar, dhe në veçanti këtu duhet theksuar faktin që nga ato 3 marrëveshje që patëm bërë asë kohe, njëra prej tyre nuk është ratifikuar nga Bosnia dhe Hercegovina, dhe përpasoj me datën 1 janar të vitit 2024 të gjithë qytetarët e Republikës Kosovës do të mund të udhtojnë pa viza për në BE, përkatësisht zonën Schengen, mirë po do të nevojiten vizat për të qarkulluar nga Kosova në Bosnjë dhe Hercegovinë dhe anasjelltas, për shkak se atje nuk është ratifikuar edhe marrëveshja që ka të bëjë me qarkullimin e lirë me ID karta. Në të njëjtën kohë kam dënuar edhe një herë dhe kam kërkuar që të gjithë të dënojnë sulmin terrorist kriminal, aktin e agresionit Serbisë në Kosovë që vrau rreshterin policor, heroin e Kosovës Afrim Bunjakun dhe plagosi 2 të tjerë, që paraqet cenim të integritetit territorial, sovranitetit shtetëror dhe nacionalist dhe sigurisë tonë nacionale kombëtare. Po ashtu kemi nevojë për siguri për Kosovën, më shumë siguri për Kosovën, është çështje sigurisë këto sulme të vazhdueshme. Ju e mbani mend të gjithë që me 29 maj sulmuan KFOR-in, 10 ushtarë të lënduar, me 14 qershor i rrëmbyen 3 policistan dhe tash edhe e vran një polic. Andaj është e rëndësishme që të mos ketë epizod të katërt të këtyre mësymjeve kriminale të Serbisë, të sponsoruara nga ajo, dhe duhet të ketë sanksione për Serbinë e siguri për Kosovën. Pra, është ditë e mirë për shkak se është ditë e mirë për shkak se procesi i Berlinit e bën Ballkanin Evropian, e Ballkani Evropian është ai i cili duhet secilit prej shtetit tona. Të gjitha shtetet duan e Kosova është njëra prej atyre që nuk ka dilema sa i përket orientimit evropian dhe euroatlantik.
A do të ketë dialog kundër Serbia dhe Serbisë ka sanksione? Sepse ndërkombëtarët kanë përsëritur sërish kërkesën për t'i lënë pas fantazmat e të shkuarës dhe konfliktet. Do të ketë dialog apo nuk do të ketë dialog deri në momentin që do ketë sanksione ndaj Serbisë?
Ne kemi marrëveshje me Serbinë, është marrëveshja bazike 27 shkurtit, e cila e ka në qendër njohjen de facto reciproke. Ajo duhet të zbatohet dhe në anën tjetër e kemi edhe aneksin e zbatimit nga Ohri të 18 marsit. Unë kam ofruar që të nënshkruhen ato, është pala serbe ajo që ka refuzuar, edhe sot gjatë takimit të drekës, unë kam kërkuar nga kryeministria Brnabić që ta nënshkruajmë marrëveshjen bazike dhe aneksin e Ohrit. Pra unë jam që të zbatohen ato, pikërisht tani që presidenti i Serbisë është i zënë në Kinë me vizitën atje dhe me takimet me superfuqit lindore e veri lindore, unë kam thënë le ta nënshkruajmë, me që s'ka shumë e interesuar për normalizim me Kosovën, le ta nënshkruajmë bashkë me kryeministrin e Serbisë marrëveshjen bazike dhe aneksin e zbatimit. Mirë po, ajo sërish nuk ishte interesuar. Kancelarit Olaf Scholz, unë jam falenderuar për mbështetjen e vazhdueshme të Gjermanisë, si në planin bilateral, po ashtu edhe atë në kuadër të Bashkimit Evropian dhe të NATO-s, dhe Gjermania është partneri, aleati dhe miku ynë të i rëndësishëm si për zhvillimin edhe demokratizimin e brendshëm, po ashtu edhe për integrimet evropiane dhe euroatlantike.
Ka shumë kohë që si një taku, se vini taku pas disa muajve, fillimisht i raporti juaj çka diskutuat, çka komunikuat, diskutuat edhe për çështjet e tjera që lidhen me Kosovën dhe Shqipërinë.
Keni një koment për deklaratën e kryeministit Rama që veriu i Kosovës është tokë askujt?
Veriu i Kosovës është tokë e Kosovës. Nevojë më shumë siguri për Kosovën, që do të thotë trupat e NATO-s në Kosovë të jenë në patrullime të përbashkëta me policinë e Kosovës, me qenë se vija kufitare me Serbinë është 380 km, është më e gjatë se sa vija kufitare me Shqipërinë, Malin e Zi dhe Maqedoninë e Veriut marrë së bashku, dhe policia e Kosovës është responderi i parë në rast të tensioneve dhe përpjekjeve për destabilizim, EULEX-i i dyti dhe KFOR-i i treti. Por policia e Kosovës është edhe në jug të Ibrit, edhe në veri të Ibrit. KFOR-i nuk është institucion i zbatimit të ligjit, këtë e bën policia e Republikës së Kosovës dhe këtu nuk ka kur farë dilemash. Pra, veriu i Kosovës është tokë e Kosovës, integriteti territorial është i pasueshëm, sovraniteti mbrohet me qeverisit demokratike. Gjithashtu do të kujdesemi për sigurinë kombëtare. Kemi biseduar hapur me të gjithë dhe unë I falenderoj të gjithë ata që ishin konstruktiv dhe që po e mbështesin Republikën e Kosovës. In English it's possible to know what